Genesis chapter 1. It was read over us earlier. Let's read it once more again, starting in verse number 24 of chapter 1, and we'll go all the way to chapter 2, verse 3. I know, we can do this. Here we go. Genesis 1, starting in verse 24. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things, beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, same day, by the way, same day, still day 6. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them," turn the page, "have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. Now 3 more verses. Hang with me. "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day God finished his work that he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation." Let's pray. Father, speak to us today. Your servants are listening. We love you, and we thank you that you've created us. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, point number 1. This is an easy one. Ready? Day 6, we see God create land, animals, and mankind. All right? Starting off with a bang here. We got our first blank. Here we go. Land, animals, and mankind. Verses 24 and 25 talk about all the land animals that God creates. Now listen, this is not, we've kind of belabored this. I won't go all the way into the depths of this once again. This is not millions of years before man. This is a day. We've talked about the word day, right? Ad nauseum. We've talked about the word day. A day. Before God creates man, he creates all these animals, okay? There's much to be said about why man is created last. And when I say man right now, I'm talking about mankind. Why mankind is created last. Because we are the chief over all creation. We're going to talk about the dominion and all the different things God has given us authority over, the different things about us versus these animals. But don't you absolutely just love looking at the animals God's created? Right? Isn't it amazing? I can go down the rabbit hole of like nature shows, right? Now they go kind of wonky because they talk about the millions of years and all those different things, and like we've even like trained our kids, like it's hilarious. Well, something will be coming on and they'll say something, well, millennia ago, millions of years ago, all these different things, and like Isaac will be like, yeah, it's not that long, not millions of years, right? So we've taught them the truth about that, but it's amazing God's creativity, the diversity in kind, and then within those kinds, the adaptations and all these beautiful things. It's glorious to see God's creation. We have friends in our congregation. They've been to different continents over the last couple years, in part just to look at new pieces of God's creation that dwell in those areas that we don't have here. It's glorious. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And it is a good thing that God created them. Now, some people say this. Well, when you study, Pastor Eric, if you were enlightened, if you study the different animals, you can see the similarities in bone structure and design and all these different things. If you study the fossils, you see so many similarities. Wouldn't that say that they have a common ancestor and they just macro-evolved from the common thing, and that's why they have so many things in common? No, that does not mean that. What it actually shows is not a common ancestor. It shows a common creator. It's a common creator. Of course, they have some similarities, and they live on the same planet, right? Okay, so it shows a common creator, but this is beautiful in this diversity. So you can take all the different macroevolution things that we've talked about, other species, other animals, other things from the last previous weeks, and just apply them to these animals too. And I won't make you go down the rabbit hole with me again today. But just know, God created them as fully formed kinds. Within the kind, yes, there is diversity, there's adaptation. Absolutely, we see that. But there's no cross-kind evolution. Birds don't become lizards. Lizards don't become birds. Your dog at home, its ancestors were not worms. And what we see next is your ancestors were not monkeys. Your ancestors were not orangutans. Were not your ancestors were people. We're people. Amen? Okay, so let's do some dinosaur talk. Right? Let's do some dinosaur talk. All right? I won't go. I think dinosaurs are cool. Okay? Does anyone have a favorite? Like as you're growing up, did you have a favorite? T-Rex? Okay. I have a big head but little arms, right? All right. Somebody else, your favorite. What do you got? It's got to be Triceratops. That's me. I'm a Triceratops guy. All right? Pterodactyl. Yes. All right. Stegosaurus. So some good stuff, right? So dinosaurs existed. And dinosaurs existed at the same time people lived. They weren't here millions of years before, and then they die off, and then millions of years later we see people show up. That's not how it worked. Now, some of you may say, well, where'd they go? I have some theories. I have some theories. We can talk about them in the weeks to come. I have some theories. It shows up later, my theory, okay? But what we do know is that they existed, and they existed at the same time that people existed. At the same time. As you study, here's some interesting things you found. I'll just kind of tease the flood stuff here. What's interesting, in some places, they have found dinosaurs buried in ways that seem like it was like instantaneous, like burial, and they are buried vertically, not horizontally. There's some evidence for a flood, worldwide instant burial floods, things moving, right? Okay? Otherwise, how'd that one dinosaur get buried in all these different layers of history, right? Okay? But there is also ample evidence of human remains and dinosaur remains on the same level. In Texas, right? As a Tennessean, I feel like Texas owes us a lot. Okay? Our team name is the Volunteers because of what we did with Texas. Tennessee is the real UT. It was the University of Tennessee existed before the state of Texas existed. The school predates. Okay, I'm going to start a fight. All right? Talk about evolution all you want, but you start messing with Texas, it's like, right? We'll secede at any moment. No, you won't. Okay, so, but in the state of Texas, dinosaur footprints, just a little ways away, human footprints, same level. When it was discovered, the scientific community did everything possible, many of the scientific community, not all, did everything possible to try to, no pun intended, cover it up. Right? So there's lots of evidence that humans and dinosaurs coexisted. Right? So we see these animals, and it is a wonderful thing, okay? That God created animals, and He's given us animals to enjoy. And after the flood, we get to eat them too. So, right? Okay? All right, some of you guys had animal this morning. Think about it. Okay, so, but we know Every animal is created on day 6. Now, after the animals on day 6, here's the second part. Mankind is created, but mankind is created in God's image and God's likeness. And this sets him apart. This sets mankind apart from all other creation. It sets us apart from all other creation. So we see verse 24 and 25. We see the land animals, creeping animals, all the fun things created. Verse 26. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Here's what's interesting. Verse 26 is not God doing that. Verse 26 is a bit of a Trinity tribunal. And it only happens, this type of discussion only happens when man is created. So just kind of heads up, when we get to chapter 2, some people look at Genesis 1, especially as it relates to the creation of man, and they look at Genesis 2, especially how it relates to the creation of man, and they say, hold on, these don't jive. Is there a conflict? What's going on here? How come we got two versions and they're different? So what we have in Genesis 1 is the big picture of God's creation, and when you see the word man in chapter 1, it's talking about mankind. We see that because he says in verse 27, it says, and he created them male and female. How did he create man, male and female? Well, it's mankind. When we get into chapter 2, what happens is God zeroes in on the chief of creation, on mankind, and he zeroes in on, okay, we've got male and female described in mankind in chapter 1. In chapter 2, well, how'd the male, female, and mankind come about? And then we get more details there, right? So chapter 1, think that 30,000-foot view. Chapter 2, think like 100-foot view, right? We're zooming in. And it's right for us to zoom in on this aspect of God's creation because we, as image bearers, are different than all other creation. And that is a cool and good thing. Hello? It's a good thing. So mankind is created in God's image and likeness. So image and likeness. So there's been some debate over image and likeness. What does image mean? What does likeness mean? And the debates are kind of threefold. Here's one of them. One of them says they're two words meaning completely different things, and we need to fully understand each one. The second perspective is, well, image is what we're going for. Likeness kind of qualifies image. And we can talk about that in a minute. The third one is they just mean the exact same thing. Okay? For what I can tell, what I believe about this is it seems to be, the correct idea seems to be that we are created in God's image, and that like in his likeness is describing how we are created in God's image. As you look throughout the rest of the Bible, it's rare, if ever, like likeness is used to describe us as image bearers, but being created in the image of God is like almost always there when it talks about this. So image has to be the main point of this. Likeness has to be a description of the image part. Okay? Here's what that practically kind of sounds like, looks like. We are created in the image of God, but we are not gods. Right? There are some things about God, because we are created in his image, that we have some likenesses. That make sense? Okay? So, this is why also he blesses and commands us differently than all other creation, because nothing else is created in his image except us. Now, if you are a theistic evolutionist, Genesis 1 and 2, you have to work. It's like you can't massage your way into that. Like you've got to bend and break to get your way into that. Here's why. Would it not have been just as easy for God to tell Moses, write these words down? Mankind evolved from previous creation. Couldn't he have just said that? Listen, he gave us this, and we're still trying to figure this out. So if he gave us that, it's not like, well, we wouldn't want him to not be able to understand. Right? Okay? But he didn't say that. He said, okay, we're going to create all these things, and now we're going to create mankind in the image of God. Just another sidebar here. Male and female, he created them. We're going to get into some of that talk, and we are going to do the Worship Together Weekend version, right? You'll get more details next week, though I'll avoid some specific terminology because of we got littles in here with us this weekend, which is I love. I prefer it anyway, right? But just you don't have to be quite as nervous, parents. Probably going to get some questions, but not the crazy ones. All right? Hopefully not have to define certain words that Pastor Eric said from the pulpit. Does that make sense where I'm going? Okay, so it's not that man was created in God's image and not woman. It says in the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. Right? So what's interesting is in some of the other historic accounts of creation that sound similar yet different from Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Some people say, well, you know, there's other cultures, and they have stories of creation that sound really similar to this, but there's some pretty important differences. How come we know the Bible's right and they're wrong? Well, number one, the consistency in Scripture. Number two, wouldn't it make sense that other cultures would have some creation narrative stories that sound similar to this because this is how it happened? Right? But here's what's maybe, in some ways, for some of us, might be the most interesting part of this. Almost verbatim, almost 100% of all the other versions of this demean women and treat women as less than, lower than, objects, possessions, but not the Bible. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. From the beginning, God's view of man and woman, yes, distinct roles, of course. Right? Anything with two heads is a monster. Hello? Yes, distinct roles, but both image bearers of God. And this is good news. This is actually really good news. All right? So let's talk about this image bearer stuff. All right? One thing also that it doesn't mean, it has nothing to do with how we look. God is spirit. Right? God is spirit. It's not that when we say image, it's not about how we look. Some people may say, well, don't we see in Scripture where it talks about God's hand and his eyes and his feet, different things? Well, those are always used when describing God to be figurative language, right? The Bible also says that we come under his wings, right? His feathers. Do you think God has wings and feathers? No, right? Okay, so let's just make sure we think rightly about that. So what's this deal about being made in the image of God? So verse 27 again. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Okay? So one aspect of being created in the image of God is it sounds like two, but I'm gonna group it as one. That we as image bearers have unique value and dignity. We have unique value and dignity. It's not in the blank. You just have to write that part in. All right, we have unique value and dignity. What gives something value? Often the things that determine value are such. Who made it? Right? If I painted you a portrait and an actual artist painted you a portrait, which one would be more valuable? Not the one that I did. Okay? I struggle with stickmen, y'all. Okay? I can play guitar. That's my artistic expression. That's me. And it stops right there. Okay? For the most part, that's where it stops. Okay? So, who created it? Second, who owns or in the past has owned it? Listen, in this little storage area over here, we've got some basketballs. Those are church basketballs. But I've seen pictures of basketballs in like Chicago Bulls, like trophy area. This is a basketball, but those basketballs are way more valuable. Why? Because who owned it? And third, what and who used it? Right? If I sell you Eric Dill's guitar, okay. But if you buy James Taylor's guitar, completely different. Right? Okay? And I'm not just talking about the brand. I'm talking about, right, his guitar. All right? So these things determine value. And lastly, ultimately what determines value is what someone's willing to pay for it. Right? Look at me. You were created by God in the image of God. You were created for his purpose. And Jesus bought you with his blood. You are not worthless. You are extremely valuable, and you have a dignity that is different from all other creation. Listen, from conception to the grave, we value life. Life is precious. We are image bearers from the moment of conception forward. Now, we can talk about how we handle certain aspects of that. But what we cannot do is say, well, it's not really a person yet. Or, it's not really a person anymore. No, image bearer. If you disagree, you're not arguing with me. You're arguing with God. You're arguing with his word. And we stand on the truth. So life is to be protected. So much so that God, after sin comes into the world, after the fall, God makes provision for how to handle when someone or even an animal takes a human life. Did you know that? Very clearly. The first time it's mentioned is Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. Listen to this. We're not going to go deep into this. When we get to Genesis 9, we'll do the deep dive of this. But I just want to kind of give you this. God speaking, and for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Now verse 6, that's verse 5, here's verse 6. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. So God is connecting how valuable and precious being created in the image of God is, so much so that if someone kills another person, if an animal kills a person, Genesis 9 further on also would say that person deserves to die. Now Deuteronomy talks about we got to make sure this is handled right. We don't do this unjustly. We do this the right way. There can't be any question so that you don't wind up, because listen, if you handle that the wrong way and you take a life for a life, now you have shed innocent blood, right? So we do this the right way. But it talks, God's word says. God's word says. So, we have value and dignity. Next, being made in the image of God, we are spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings, unlike all other creation which has life but is not spiritual in nature. This means we are also now, because we are spiritual beings, we are eternal beings. Look at me. You're not eternal in the backward direction. You are eternal in the forward direction. You and I will live forever, either in heaven with God, in new heaven, new earth with God, or in hell separated from God. But we will exist forever. Eternal beings. Man has a body, a soul, and spirit. and they are intertwined. They are intertwined. Have you noticed how your body follows some of, like, when you have a hard time in other ways, have you noticed how it affects your body? You get some soul issues in your mind where you're thinking incorrectly, or you've been broken, hurt in certain ways, and you go into struggles with depression, you go into struggles with other things. Have you not noticed how that will also affect your body? Have you noticed how when your body is affected and with physical issues, you then go, that leads to other stuff. Our soul, our spirit, our body are intertwined. It's not like you could just segment, okay, where does that one start and this one stop? No, they're intertwined. You see that? So, we are spiritual beings. This body in this life, it's our tent. But this, being a spiritual being, sets us apart. And because of such, we are of more value than other creation. Listen, if you see me drowning and your puppy is over there drowning, I know you might love that puppy right now more than you love me. But save me. Right? All right? So we're spiritual beings. Because we are spiritual beings, as spiritual beings, that means we worship. We are people, we are beings that worship. Now listen, sometimes we worship stupid stuff. We'll worship ourselves. We'll worship approval. We'll worship power. We'll worship all these crazy things. We'll worship dumb stuff. But we are worshipers, and as such, we are created as worshipers so that we can know and love and worship God personally. Listen, your dog, you might be able to teach your dog to say, okay, let's bow for prayer. Have you seen dogs do this? And they'll kind of put their little paws down. But do they know what they're doing? No. They know they get a treat if they put themselves in that posture if you say that word. That's what they know. And praise God for dogs. We love them. All right? I'm still off on cats. But we praise God for dogs, right? I'm kidding. I'm half kidding, all right? Mostly kidding. I'm mostly kidding, okay? Listen, animals don't worship like they can't. They don't have that capacity. They're not spirit beings. They're not spiritual beings. We also can think, reason, speak, communicate through written language. We have language. And because of that, we express and have a will. We have a will. We have the capacity to choose. We are free will beings. It is not God's fault that you did whatever God, you made me this way. We'll get to Genesis 3. Alex is going to preach that one. It's going to be good. All right? Where Adam and Eve attempt to blame God for their sin. Remember what Adam says? Remember what he says? He starts it. It's his fault first. Remember what he says? God, it's this woman that you gave me. He's blaming her and God. Not my fault. All right? She does some version of the same thing. All right? Just not toward Adam. All right? So, we have the capacity to choose. We have the capacity to choose. And we'll see more about how God set that up in chapter 2. Without the capacity to choose, we're robots, right? Well, we're not robots. We can love. God is love. And we can love. And we use this free will to determine who we give our love to. And we, as spiritual beings, we are moral beings. We know right from wrong. We have a conscience. God has created that in us. We know what is right and what is wrong, especially the big pieces without anyone ever having to tell us. Right? You remember when you're potty training your kid? Some of y'all are in the middle of it right now. I pray for you. Right? But remember when they knew that they needed to go use the restroom, but instead they went and hid behind the couch? Did you teach them that? I hope not. I hope that's like, well, Mom does it. But, right? I hope that's not. Why? Now, they know right from wrong, and they're hiding what they're doing that they know is wrong. It's in us, right? So we're moral beings, and we have this capacity to choose, even love, and we are called by God to be holy, for He is holy. And all this sets us apart from all other creation. Next, we have dominion. It talks about God gives us dominion. We have dominion. Being created in His image includes the dominion that God gives us. He doesn't give anything or anyone else dominion. He gives us dominion. We are to rule over, to populate within the lands of creation, to care for creation, and the word it uses is subdue creation. See, mankind is of more value than all other creation. Therefore, mankind is given this command for dominion. Here's what's interesting, though. Ready? Our blessing from God, the blessedness that we experience from God, is directly related to how we care for His creation. You want something to eat? Better take care of that stuff. You want someplace to live? All right, you better subdue some things and handle it rightly. Otherwise, before long, you won't have a place to live. You won't have any food, right? The blessing that God even gives us entails us caring for properly, and how well we care for affects how blessed we are in His creation. It's important. It's important for us. Christians should not be, in the stereotypical sense, tree huggers. We don't worship creation. Romans 1 talks about that they exchange the truth of God for a lie, and they have chosen to worship the creation instead of the Creator. But followers of Jesus, above all people, should rightly care for, take advantage of, use properly natural resources and everything about creation. Not because we are worshiping that endangered species, but because we have a biblical mandate from God to take care of His creation. Amen? So we should be wise about that, and we can absolutely have conversations about what's the wisest thing to do in specific situations. But what we don't do is worship creation, because what we as people in our fallenness, what we tend to do is we tend to go to one pole or the other instead of having some good balance in the middle. One version of that is let's worship everything, and meat is murder and whatever, right? That tree deserves to live more than you do. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, it doesn't matter. Let's just chop everything down, cut it all down. We can do whatever we want. It's ours, and put a parking lot in there, right? And neither of those, in and of themselves, and the pole versions of those, are faithful. This is idolatry. This is also idolatry. You're just not worshiping creation, you're worshiping you. Right? And what we are called to do as followers of Christ, as the people of God, is to rightly handle the gift of creation that God has given us. And we can have discussion about, in specific settings, specific scenarios, the best way to do that. Absolutely. And we should do that. We should care. But not to the point that we worship creation, and not to the point that we just, who cares about creation? It's what I want right now. It doesn't matter how it's going to affect my kids. Right? Hello? All right. All toes stepped on. Awesome. All right. So we are to care for, and lowercase l, Lord over creation. Unlike God, we can't create something from nothing, but we also, as His image bearers, have this amazing creativity. Have you noticed this? Listen, think about the creativity of man that took place, that made where you sit currently even possible. We've got air conditioning. Praise God. You're wearing clothes. Praise God. Except for the colorblind people, you look like it goes together. All right? Praise God for that. The creativity. Listen, God has given us creativity, but we, in our selfishness, if we are not careful, we can also use the creativity that God's given us for destruction. right? Man's creativity has helped create paintings and cars and sculptures and machines, but also bombs and bullets and spears, right? So we can use the creative ability God's given us in our fallen state the wrong way. So we need to understand as image bearers that we have a responsibility to live out and to follow this dominion mandate that we've been given by God, but we also need to understand that animals are not people too. They're animals. Praise God for animals. We need to care for them. We shouldn't just, and we as people should have right laws about how you should and shouldn't treat parts of creation. Absolutely. But we also shouldn't be putting some of those things over people. And I think sometimes we struggle with that as mankind. Agree or disagree? Agree. All right. So let's finish. That was a whole lot of this. Let's go through some bullet points, right? So we've already talked about dominion. That was your blank for mankind's role. I got ahead of myself. Mankind's role was your next blank. And now let's talk about mankind's relationship. Mankind's relationship. This is fun, right? We were created for a relationship with God and a relationship with one another. We don't see all of that here. We start seeing parts of it here. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Let's keep going, verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. That is my favorite command in the whole Bible. Right? Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth, subdue it. Right? It's a great command. Not the great commandment, but it's a great command. So we see here that mankind's relationship, man and woman, like we said, are both image bearers. But that we also see there are two genders only. There are only two. All right? That shouldn't have to be some really big difficult thing, to be honest with you. Here, let me explain just a little bit. Now, how do we treat someone who is struggling with their gender identity? Do we go like, you're bad? Is that what we do? Yes or no? No. If there's confusion, if there's dysphoria, if there's some of those things, what we can't do is squash you're bad, enjoy hell. But what we also can't do is, well, I mean, if you feel this way, it's probably true. Do you have a teenage daughter? Let me back up. I don't have one of those yet, and I'm living this. Do you have a daughter? I'm not throwing rocks at girls. I'm just saying girls generally feel more than boys. Am I being rude? I'm not trying to be rude. I promise I'm not. Okay? Boys feel, but girls feel a little more. Generally speaking. That's especially my experience. Okay? If I validated every feeling that my children have had as if it were accurate, would that be smart? No. So while we can't go, enjoy hell, we also can't go, well, I mean, you're probably right. If you feel that way, it's probably the way it is. Your feelings will lie to you. If you haven't figured that out, I'm trying to help you. My feelings lie to me all the time. Right? I still feel sometimes, for very short periods of time, sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm 23, I can handle that. I can get out there. You know, like I'm around like some of the college students in the high school. Yeah, it's people our age, you know? No, not anymore. Very quickly, I'm reminded that my feelings have lied to me. Right? So we have to be careful how we handle those things. So mankind's relationship, two genders, and that's, praise God, that's a good thing. Are there females sometimes that are more masculine than other females? Yeah, but still females. Are there males that are maybe a little more effeminate than other males? Are they still guys? Yes, they are. Eric, that's just so binary of you. Guys, God designed us. when we kick back at God's design, it's not that people who believe God's design is good and right and true are bad. It's that you're trying to break something that is unbreakable. You're trying to break something that can't be broken. But it sure can hurt. It sure can hurt when it's handled the wrong way. More next week when it's not worship together weekend. All right. And then we see the relationship with God. All right? So, mankind's relationship. Now, creation's food. Short version here. Everything ate fruit, vegetables, all stuff that grew on plants that had seeds in it. That's what we ate. Animals ate it. People ate it. No one ate anything else until after the fall. And mankind isn't even given the mandate, okay, yeah, you can eat meat till what we see after the flood. Right? We see further variations of that in the New Testament. We see Jewish law. Those are kind of some different conversations. But in the beginning, before the fall, God's design is that we ate plants. So listen, when your mama says, eat your vegetables, she is doing the work of God in your life. Okay? Trust her. Okay? She's read this. This is good. So we see creation's food. And then we see God's declaration. Let's look here. And God said it was, verse 31, God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was not good. It was very good. Why? Because creation is complete. Man is in his place. Everything is ordered. Now it's not just good, it's very good. Very good. All right? So, I want you to notice the order here about all of this. God creates, God blesses, and then for man, God commands. It's not God creates, God commands, and if we obey, then he blesses. We see this mandate, we see this principle, creation, blessedness, then command. And even in that is a picture of the gospel, of the goodness of God, the grace of God in this. Now let's go to day 7. Day 7, creation's completion. Your last blank for today, creation's completion, day 7. Chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all of the host of them. And on the seventh day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. Now just a couple things. God didn't rest because he was tired, like, oh, this was difficult. All he's done is talk. That's all we've seen him do. We get a little more details about how he creates man in chapter 2, but almost all he does, period, in all of creation is just speak. I think God's okay that he's not getting tired from that. He is not resting because of his fatigue. He's stopping because it's done. He's stopping because it's done. And as an act of faith, the Jewish people celebrate Shabbat on the seventh day, which is not Sunday, it's Saturday. Sunday's the first day. Okay? We are not given that mandate in the New Testament. Jesus does not keep Shabbat in the same way that the legalistic Jews would have kept Shabbat. He never gives us that command. He never gives us that mandate. And here's why. We find our true rest in Jesus. As a general principle, it's good for your body to take a real day off. And for the Jewish people, it was actually an act of faith, because everybody else is working all week long. We got to make sure we've got support, make sure we've got everything we need. And the Jewish people said, no, we trust God. We don't have to work 7 days. We're just going to work 6. God will take care of day 7. We're fine. It's an act of faith. It's an act of trusting God. So we see on day 7, God says, all right, we're done. Now, some very simple responses for us, and then we're going to close. Very simple responses for us. First response, thank God for making you. Thank God, if you're a lady, thank God for making you a lady. If you're a guy, thank God for making you a guy. And thank God for making you in his image. Today, an act of obedience, an act of worship one act of worship would be something so simple. God, thank you. And we struggle with that because sometimes we look in the mirror and go, God, did you mess up? Like, I don't really like this about myself. How come I look this way? How come I sound this way? How come I, whatever. As an act of worship today, just say, God, thank you. Quote Psalm 139, wonderful are your works, I know it full well. I'm fearfully and I'm wonderfully made. Amen? Response number 2, enjoy God's creation. Take a hike, y'all. Enjoy it. Look at it. Be out in it. Enjoy God's creation. Now be careful because in this fallen state, some of the most beautiful places in the world will kill you if you are not careful. Okay? Don't be slipping and breaking hips, Daniel. He's not here today. I'm saying it. All right? All right? But enjoy God's creation. That is an act of worship. Enjoy it. He gave it to us in part to enjoy. Number 3, glorify God by fulfilling his purpose for your life as an image bearer. You know what ultimately his purpose is? Know him, make him known. Know him, make him known. As an image bearer, fulfill God's design and purpose for your life. Number 4, ready? Treat other people like they are also image bearers. If they look different than you, okay. Create an image of God. If they're a different gender than you, praise God. They're an image of God. Treat other people as image bearers too. Even when they cut you off on 400. All right? Treat them as image bearers. This would determine what you put before your eyes and what you don't put before your eyes, because that young lady that you might be tempted to look at, that young man you might be tempted to look at in a certain way, that's an image bearer of God. You don't treat them as less than that. They're image bearers. Next and last. Remember that Jesus, hear this, he is the image of the invisible God. The fullness of God dwells in him. 1 Timothy 2:5 says this, for there is one God and there is one mediator between God and man, the man, Christ Jesus. So hear me. It's hard to talk about creation without getting all the way into Genesis 3. We're not doing that today, but I do want to say this. We are marred image bearers. We're broken because of our sin. But Jesus came as the perfect image of God. And he lived the sinless life that you and I could not live. And even so, he offered himself as a sacrifice for your sin and for mine. You know what that means? Most people understand, like, oh, Jesus died on the cross. You and I, we broke God's moral law. Jesus paid our fine. He didn't owe anything on his own, so he paid ours. And if you will put your faith in him, just like Eli has, we saw that picture today. If you'll put your faith in Christ, look, I want you to hear me. It doesn't matter what you've done, where you've been. There's no sin too big for God. If you will put your faith in Jesus, even though you've sinned against God, he will make you new. He'll give you new desires. He'll give you a new heart. He'll give you a new way of thinking. He'll make you truly alive. You can have a personal relationship with God, and one day, heaven with Jesus will be your eternal home. Don't say no to that. Don't say no to that.